So good morning and welcome to, I believe this is our second QuickBooks user group that we're having via a webinar or via Zoom. So we got a pretty good agenda going on. I also have with us, or we also have with us, Mandy Walls coming to us, North Carolina, actually. And what's she doing down there? Well,
enjoying the daily sunshine and warm weather.
then we also have Sharon Snaringer, which many of you may remember as well. So I thought all three of us in here, we could all provide some input on questions and all. So what I'd like to do is keep the floor open for questions as you guys go along. As we're running through, we have a pretty good agenda, I think. And just ask your questions, chime in. You don't have to send them, just unmute yourself. If you're muted, unmute yourself and ask your question. If you have input on someone else's question, please feel free to chime in as well. If you've been at the user groups at the office, you know that it's kind of everybody chimes in and helps one another. And that's what makes this such a great session. The only thing is, of course, with COVID, we can't do it in person. Hopefully we'll be able to do that at some point. But actually we have a pretty good amount of people in on this. I'm not sure we could get everybody in our conference room. If we try to do this in person, we'd have to split it up. So again, just you can keep yourself on mute if you'd like, or unmute, whatever works for you. Most people unmute just because of background noises and so forth. And we will go ahead and dive into this. So one of the first things I wanted to talk about is converting to QuickBooks Online. I get a lot of questions about QuickBooks Online. All of us do, because Mandy, Sharon, and myself all provide support out of the Chambersburg office. So if you call in asking for assistance, you probably get one of us that is available to help you. So I wanted to chat about QuickBooks Online. That's a common question. It's becoming more popular, and a lot of people want to know things about it, what the differences are. There's a couple different versions, just like the desktop edition. So I'm going to kind of bring my screen down. Wait a minute. Bring my screen down and I'll show you some of the differences. So they've got a simple start, QuickBooks Essentials, the Plus version, and Advanced. Now, Advanced is kind of the full-blown, if you've worked with QuickBooks Enterprise, which is kind of like desktop's top program. The QuickBooks Online Advanced is the same way, but of course the price goes along with all the different bells and whistles. And if you're in a situation where you're running inventory, that's where you get most of the advantages, or you need some enhanced reporting features. That's where QuickBooks Online, the advanced version, is beneficial. Most people, or most of the clients that we have now, run Essentials or Plus, and it kind of goes over what features you have available in each one. If it's check marked, you have those features. I'll add that you notice here it says 50% off QuickBooks Online for 3 months. If you sign up through Smith Elliott Kearns, we have what's called wholesale billing, which we are able to provide that 50% off for as long as you're in our wholesale billing plan. It's not just 3 months. So if you're with us 10 years, you're going to get 50% off at this point, 50% off what you would normally pay off the list price. So these prices here would be what you would be paying for the term of your subscription with QuickBooks Online. It is a little different. I will tell you that, and I'm going to show you. Now, I was in a sample file. Actually, bear with me here a minute. It does look a little bit different than what you guys are used to with desktop. This is your QuickBooks Online home screen. And just like desktop, there are all different types of links to get to where you need to be. There's a couple different ways to get to everything. The new button up here is where you record transactions. It also gives you a quick view of your bank accounts. It gives you a business overview, and I'm not going to get into this too much, but I did want to give you guys a look at what it actually, what you're going to see if you was to decide to go to QuickBooks Online. It is different. If you've been working with QuickBooks Desktop for a long time, it is definitely a different look and feel. So it's something that you need to be prepared for. And I like to let people know that because I had a little bit of shock the first time I went in, and it takes a little bit of getting used to, but you do get used to it. Probably one of the biggest advantages, especially in the COVID environment that we're in right now, one of the biggest advantages to QuickBooks Online is you have access to your data anywhere, any place, anytime you have internet access. So where a lot of us, when COVID hit and we all kind of had to pick up our desktops and our laptops and printers and all this stuff and head home to work and adjust and go through some struggles in that process, QuickBooks Online, you just log on from home with your computer and you're in. So you don't have to worry about how you're going to share files and moving files around like you would with desktop. So something to think about with that. I do not believe it's for everyone. I think it depends on each individual business. And I think the other two girls would agree with me on that as well. I think it's something that you have to do your due diligence on. I mean, some of the features are nice. I love the 1099 processing in QuickBooks Online more than I do desktop. I like the bank rec features. It takes some getting used to. The online banking in this program is great, but there are a couple things you need to know before you start connecting up your bank accounts and credit cards, but it does save a lot of data entry time. But there are a couple things that you need to know going in, depending on how you process your data, if you're invoicing and so forth. So just keep that in mind. I wanted to share that with you. I know that's a question. One of the questions I did get, actually, I'm not sure if they're on in this session or if they're on in the next, is, getting access to users. One of the nice things about our QuickBooks desktop is the features that we have with providing access to different users. And you do have the same thing in QuickBooks Online. The other thing, you can invite your accounting firm. You can get up to 2 accountant users, and it does not take away from the number of users you have in the program. So keep that in mind as well. Sharon or Mandy, anything you want to add on that?
I don't think so.
Me neither.
Okay. All right. So we're going to put QuickBooks to the side, QuickBooks Online at least. All right. So I mentioned the 1099 processing in the online version. And I did want to talk about the changes to QuickBooks. The 1099 processing for 2020. It kind of threw us for a loop and having to make changes and reconfiguring files when we were getting them from our clients and setting up vendors a little differently. And I just wanted to make you aware of the new process if you don't do them, or if you're going to. Yeah, Sharon.
Sorry, before you leave the online, excuse me, I noticed that the payroll is over there on the left. So does that mean you do not have to pay extra for the payroll module?
Payroll.
I would say you pay extra, right?
It is.
Okay.
You have different levels that you can pick
Okay,
on how much they do versus what you do.
okay. So I would still have to pay for the payroll.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. That stumped me there for a minute. So, and with the payroll, I'll just mention this as well. The payroll is very different in QuickBooks. It is very different.
Mm,
QuickBooks Desktop, you can kind of manipulate things and do the things that
Make
you need to
changes.
do and make adjustments and change the way things are being handled. And with QuickBooks Online, a lot of that control of different things kind of comes out of your hand, because QuickBooks says, okay, well, we know people that are in running their business. They don't want them to have to mess with payroll. They just want to enter their hours and run with it. So there are a couple tweaks with regards to local reporting when you're setting up that you got to keep in mind. When you're setting up employees in that program, it's definitely different, and it does take some getting used to.
The setting up, I think, is a big deal in QuickBooks Online. If
Yeah.
you don't have everything set up correctly, you are gonna spend a lot of time with the support people trying to fix things because you can't fix it yourself.
And unfortunately, and that being said, we can't fix it either.
No.
The only thing we're going to do is have to call support, because you get well, we got to fix that on the back end. So
Yeah.
we actually, when we're trying to help someone, are actually on the phone with their support people, just trying to get it fixed because we can't do it. It's come a long ways. I will tell you, the first couple of years that was available, I was not at all a fan of the payroll. It's come a long ways in the past, I'd say 2 years. The first couple of years of that was kind of painful for our end, though. So just some things you need to know with that. Okay, so we'll jump back on to 1099 processing. Now Mandy is our 1099 guru in the office. And she kind of heads up that area and does a great job. And of course, with the changing of the forms, so we have the 1099 NEC, and Mandy, you can chime in here anytime. And
You're doing good.
you have the 1099 NEC, and then you have the 1099 miscellaneous. Now, previously, prior to 2020, everything got reported on the 1099 miscellaneous. Well, they switched it. And now you have to have your vendors, not necessarily your vendors, but your accounts set up correctly. So if we go up here under vendors and go down to 1099 forms, and I will tell you, it will ask you to do, before you get into the, or click in here, you're gonna have to do a backup. And I did that this morning, so we didn't have to go through the pains of that. Let me try that again, 1099 forms. And it takes you, once it does the backup, it takes you into this screen, and I'll try to make it a little bit bigger. And what you have to do, because different things are reported on different forms. So all your non-employee compensation now, so those are independent contractors, someone providing a service, and Mandy, you're gonna have to correct me here if I'm wrong. Anyone providing a service, such as someone coming in doing repairs and maintenance, your accountants, attorneys.
Yep.
Basically, anybody providing a service where you're paying them more than $600.
Okay.
That is not incorporated, with the exception of attorneys, get a 1099.
Okay. Good. So, and if you click get started here, it's going to take you to do your 1099 vendors. So you're going to mark your vendors that you have. It's going to show you who you already have marked. And the marking of the vendors did not change. You still go into your vendor, go to a vendor, still go to tax settings, and you would enter their tax ID here and mark them as eligible for 1099. So that portion of this did not change. So that stayed the same. The difference is on this following screen, you have to select which accounts you're going to record non-employee compensation to. So I always like to show all accounts, and then you'll notice when I click on this, so subcontract labor, I want to mark it as non-employee NEC box 1. So that's what form you're going to select for non-employee compensation. And you would go through this list, save and close, and then those vendors, then the vendors in those accounts are marked as getting the 1099. So it gets a little tricky here. So hang on a minute. So let's say we've got all these marked. And then we go to save and close. Now we're going to go back up and we want to deal with our miscellaneous. So we go back down to 1099 forms, print and e-file. Yes. Now we're going to look at our 1099 miscellaneous forms. Now this is rental income. This is where you're going to report rent you paid to someone.
Most common.
Yep. Royalties paid.
Other income, prizes, award,
Medical payments. Don't medical payments go on this one?
medical payments still go on the miscellaneous form.
So that would include vets.
Yes.
So just as a FYI. Then you click get started and you'll notice when you get to the mapping of accounts, now it says miscellaneous box 1 or 2. So you have to look at this a little better to make sure that you are reporting the right thing in the right box. So vet payments would go in box 6. Rent payments would go in box 1. Those are going to be, I think, the most common that I see.
1, 3, and 6 are the most common that we have. 1, 6.
Other income, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's setting those payments up, but where it gets a little tricky, and Mandy, you can help me on this. So when you have, and I forget how it goes, when you have a vendor,
Sometimes you're going to pay a vendor you might pay them for rent. You might also pay them for providing a service. Well, those are now split on 2 different forms. So there will be times where you have to differentiate. You might have to have multiple accounts for the same thing so that you can differentiate the forms.
so if you run into more than one type of payment for a vendor, you'll have to call us and we'll let you know. We'll walk you through it. So it is a bit tricky. There are instructions out on Intuit's website how to do that as well. Yeah, because they had them out there at the end of the year.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, there are very detailed instructions on how to do that. So just keep that in mind. But once you get past the initial setup, it's pretty easy to go from there. Once you've mapped your accounts and you have everything set up correctly, it's pretty straightforward. The print just like they normally do. What's up, Sharon?
I have a question. Now, when you do that setup, does that stay? Like, do those settings stay, or do you have to do that back up and do it again the next year?
No, I was pretty sure that they stayed because I know there were
It's-
ones I set up at the end of the year and they did stay.
Yeah, it stays.
Yeah.
It stays. Now, obviously, if you're adding new vendors or adding new accounts, then you want to look at remapping
Yeah.
thing,
Yep.
but
Okay.
yeah, no, it'll remember what you have in there. And just like with everything else, if you want proper reporting, set up a fee. So get it right the first time,
Yeah.
and you're not gonna have to keep playing with it each time.
Yeah. The last thing we want to do at the end of the year is have to go back through setup processes with everything else we have going on. So there's plenty of things to do at year end. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about was credit card reconciliation and the setup. I know this is something I visit frequently on these user groups just because credit cards that we are using within the businesses, I mean, everybody's using them. And we don't always pay them off every month, especially in an COVID environment. People that once were able and had the cash flow to pay your credit cards off every month, maybe using that as a, maybe not the best idea, but using that as a way to extend some credit to yourself and manage your cash flow a little bit better. And I want to make sure that you know, so if you're paying it off each month, it's pretty easy. You can just wait till you get your credit card statement, enter it all in as a bill or as a write check, and enter all the different lines in that one transaction. But a better way to manage this is to actually go in and to your list, to your chart of accounts, and say you got a new credit card. And you can do this in QuickBooks Online as too, but it's a little more tricky, especially if you have the same cards. Just mentioning that. So you'll notice in here, we've got a QuickBooks credit card and a Cal Oil credit card. If I click on that, the account type is credit card. It actually provides you, it's essentially the same thing as a bank account. You record transactions, you record your payment, any credits, and it allows you to do a reconciliation at the end of the month or when you get your statement. So you want to make sure that you set it up. So when you go into your chart of accounts, if we were to click new, we would select credit card, hit continue, and then set the account up in this screen. You can connect it online if you want. But I would say initially don't do that. I wouldn't do that. Wait until you've got the reconciling and all under control, and then connect it up with online. So that's how you set it up. Now, in order to enter, let's say you get the statement and you've got charges to enter. And what setting that up as a credit card account does, you notice it sets it up on the balance sheet. It's just under your accounts payable, which is where it should be because it is essentially a liability. Any balance on that is a liability. So as you're recording transactions, it increases this balance. When you make a payment, it reduces it, just like accounts payable. If we go up to banking, you'll notice we can enter credit card charges. And if you click that, I can go in and tell it what credit card I am entering a charge for. You can have a purchase or a charge or a credit if you return something. And probably one of the best things I like about this is I can go back and search by vendor where I got something from. That is one of the perks. If you wait till you get your statement and just put it into a bill or the write check and do multiple lines for all the different charges, you don't have the detail by vendor. This way, if you're entering those charges individually, you can go back and you'll have that detail by your vendor if you would ever need to search. And so we can enter that. We can put the amount in. You select account. Note it looks just like the check screen or the bill entry screen. It's just going to post it to the credit card account. You select your account here and save and close. You also have the option to select a class. If we was to select refund, it'll come up and tell you you're on a refund. My only caution here would be if you enter a refund, make sure that the next time you go in to enter a charge, that it is marked purchase/charge, because I've seen it hold the refund credit designation after you close it out. So just make sure. Excuse me. Then you actually go in under banking and go to reconcile, and you can select, if it's set up as a credit card account, it will come up here for you to reconcile. And if we put the balance in, finance charges, and you tell it what account your finance charges should go to, and hit continue, it's going to take you into a screen just like your bank reconciliation screen. And that's exactly what you do. Then it gives you the option, once you have everything reconciled, to go in and post a bill. Once you hit reconcile now, it'll say, what do you want to do? Do you want to write a check? Do you want to post a bill out to accounts payable so that you can pay it? And you select the option that applies. Anything, Sharon, Amanda, you want to add in there?
I don't think so.
They're chatty this morning.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a nice feature. And you can print off a reconciliation report just like you do for your bank statement as well.
Excuse me,
Uh-huh.
I have a question. Does
Okay.
this work? Does this work if you have a credit card that's linked to a bank account? So it's like a debit card.
I think that has to be, do you get a separate statement for it?
No,
No, you would
On
do
your
it.
bank statement.
Yeah, that would come
It's
through on your
right
bank
On
statement.
your, yeah, on your regular bank statement.
so purchases done with that card have to be entered as a bill.
Or check.
Yeah,
check.
or check,
Each.
yeah. Well, yes.
I mean,
That
I
brings
am
up an
not,
interesting topic. So if you are using a bank card, vendor purchases or to pay vendors, and they happen to also be a 1099 vendor, you do want to use that check feature. Want to mark it ACH or EFT. That QuickBooks is smart enough to know then that to exclude that vendor payment when it's pulling up the 1099 summary report. Because technically, if you're paying a vendor with credit card, by a credit card, and a bank card is a credit card, those are reported on a 1099-K, and that exempts you from reporting on a 1099 miscellaneous or NEC form.
Okay. So write it as a bill, and mark it as ACH or EFT if it's a 1099 vendor.
If you're using a card, I would run it as just enter it as a check.
Yeah.
Skip the bill process, just enter it as a check.
and
Sync
just, like, instead of in your check number, you can put in there debit card or
Yep.
EFT.
If you do DC debit card, EFT, anything that, there's a lot of different abbreviations you can put in there that QuickBooks will recognize that it's a credit card payment.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, I thought there was a payment type up here under the list.
Mm,
I might be wrong. That might be under the customer preferences.
Bonnie,
Uh-huh.
do you have one that you can show us that's been paid? Sometimes with our credit cards, we'll have 20 or 30 charges a month, and I want to see what that would look like if they're each entered individually.
Well, let me see. You mean on like the reconciliation?
No, just the payment itself, the check that would actually pay the credit card. I sort of wanted to see would each of those vendors be listed underneath, on a separate line, or how would that show?
No, it just shows up as a payment.
To your credit card company.
Yes.
yeah.
So if we were to go to vendors, let's see if it has, this is a sample file. So if you see this, it comes up, QuickBooks credit card is the payment account that it posts to. Up here, it's being paid out of the checking account. Where you're going to get your detail is when you are entering by vendor, where you're going to see in under each vendor, that's where that's going to post. That's where you're going to see the detail. So I would have to go, let's say you had charges to Amazon. If you had, 10 charges to Amazon, you're going to see it. And let's see if we can do it here. Banking enter credit card charge. Ah,
I say just use that one.
Yeah, just use that one because that's
Yep.
where you're sitting at.
and we posted to this account. Now you're gonna see in here, when you go to that vendor, that's where you're gonna see the credit card charge so that you know where it's posted. So even though I would have paid it at the end of the month when I got the statement through to QuickBooks MasterCard, the individual charge, if you enter it under the banking enter credit card charges, is gonna show up under the specific vendor. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm a little confused still. So if I wanted to look at that credit card payment that month and find out who exactly I paid or what I paid with that card that month,
Go into the card, Bonnie.
Yeah, I think if you go to the card, it should show, if you go and you can see the check that you used, you should be able to see everything.
Click
there.
on the detail on that account.
Here's where you'll see it. I went to
that's what I was wondering. Yes,
Yeah.
thank
I went to the balance sheet and I can see every single transaction there, and you can change the date to whatever you need.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Actually, that's a nice feature. I like the fact that instead of having one huge transaction, like check or bill in QuickBooks that has everything detailed out, but your vendor is just, you know, card member services or whatever the vendor is for your credit card, you're now able to see all that detail by vendor and have that vendor detail. Where, you know, where did I go back and purchase this? That's a nice feature.
And it will also show up, of course, if you do a find, if you're doing a find for a certain vendor name,
Absolutely.
they'll all show up. Okay.
Yep. So, yeah, so there are some definite perks to that. And actually, I think it'll show you banking previous reconciliation. I don't know if it's going to have one in here. Nah, it's not. I was hoping it was going to show the reconciliation report, but it looks just like the regular bank rec report.
Same format, everything.
Yep. Okay. So next thing I wanted to mention, a reminder, Mandy mentioned this one the other day, and it's pretty important. So when you are getting ready to run payroll, and QuickBooks, we know, loves to give us these messages all the time about doing a payroll update, and make sure you do your payroll updates, but do them before you run your payroll, okay? I know it's annoying every time it seems that you go in to run payroll, you get that reminder to do a payroll update. Do you want to do it now? Click yes, let it run that payroll update. There are reasons that they come up. We've had people before that don't do it, you know, just kind of ignore it for a week or the next week and then the next week, but then you're going to go to run a payroll and you're not going to have any withholdings. And you cannot, and if you start to run a payroll and see that you don't have any withholdings, you can't go back and do the payroll update and then finish your payroll. It will not do the update and then insert your withholdings. You're going to have to delete that payroll and then go back and start all over again. So do the updates before running your payroll so that you do not have issues with the payroll withholdings. I would strongly recommend that.
And not only the payroll updates, if you have an employee that's changing something on their payroll, withholdings or whatever, that needs to be updated before you run a payroll as well.
Right.
Otherwise, you have to make the changes manually. Like you can do it in their setup, go like start the payroll, realize you missed it, do it under setup, and then go back and run the payroll. It won't update on that paycheck. It won't update till the next payroll.
So any
you have to do
change
it manually, but who wants to do
Yeah.
that all the time?
Yeah. So if somebody changes their 401k withholding, So that's a good example there too, because the match is not going, I don't think the match will calculate. Well, the match, if it's a fixed amount, no, it's usually a percentage. I'm trying to think. If you change it for the employees withholding in payroll, you can override the employee's amount when you're mid payroll. But I don't know if that updates the employer amount depending on the setup.
Yeah.
So just to think about that. So definitely make any updates before running payroll. Otherwise, you're gonna have to go back and start over or do manual entry in the middle of your payroll. So wanted to mention that. One of the other things I wanted to mention, and I did this with Pat Carball not long ago, is to, and I'm surprised how many people don't, and I process payroll for clients in QuickBooks on a regular basis. And I did not have QuickBooks set up so that I could e-pay my tax deposits right out of QuickBooks. And that is so easy. So what I was doing for a long time is I would run payroll, and then I have QuickBooks set up to calculate the tax payments, of course, which if you don't have that, you should definitely have your system doing that. But then if you have enhanced payroll, you can e-pay directly out of QuickBooks. So you don't have to go out to eTides and then go out to EFTPS. You can do those payments right out of QuickBooks. So if you have an enhanced payroll, the way to know, one, you could always, I think it's is it F7? It's F7 or F2. Wait a minute.
F2.
Is it F2?
Yeah.
Should tell you if you have an enhanced payroll in here, I believe. It's not going to tell me in this or green because this is.
It's a sample file.
Right. But you should be able to tell in here if you have enhanced payroll. The other indicator would be, do you have tax forms? Are you doing tax forms directly out of your QuickBooks file?
It might tell you right in the payroll module too, but there's not one in this file, so.
So if you have the enhanced payroll, you can set up your tax payments to do e-pay right out of QuickBooks. So that's going to do your 941 payment. It'll do your 940 payment. It'll do EFTPS. And if you look down here, we have got electronic payment. And this actually will walk you through this process. Now you do have to occasionally update passwords, but that little button down there will give you this quick guide to electronic payments. And it is very easy to set up. And then once you get in, so once you have it set up, and you've got to have, for EFTPS, you have to have an internet password for your EFTPS. So you have to probably go in and reset that. If I recall correctly, you need your 4-digit PIN. And then when I go in and select, let's just say the 940 payment and go view and pay, instead of getting this screen to do a check or put EFTPS up here, it will come up and show it as an e-payment. You notice it even says here, how do I e-pay? And it kind of takes you back to the same thing, walks you through what you need to do. You do have to have a most recent payroll update. You have to have an internet connection, of course, and you have to be enrolled in EFTPS. And it even tells you need your 4-digit PIN. But then once you do that and get this set up, all you do is click the payments that you want to make. So I usually do EFTPS, so my federal 941 payment and my PA withholding payment. Click view and pay. It'll come up e-pay here. I hit submit. It gives me a screen. You can have it memorize or retain your information. So your 4-digit PIN, your password, hit submit, and it goes. and within 2 seconds, it comes back up and says submitted across it. You hit save and next, go to the next one, process PA the same way, hit submit, it comes up submitted across it. Then you will get a confirmation email telling you that your payments have been submitted. It is that quick and easy. So you've taken a process where if you're doing it in QuickBooks and you have to go out to EFTPS or the eTide site and process those payments, you've reduced your time by more than half of having to make those payroll tax payments. Super easy. It will come up down here. It will show, see where all these say check, it would come up as ePay. And it'll say complete once it's been accepted. And usually the accepted email is within a half an hour of when they've been submitted. Pat, does that work for you very well?
Yes, I was going to say, that's the best thing. It is so easy once Bonnie sets it up for you. I just did it the other day for April. Yeah, it's really easy.
Yeah, and I like the confirmation email, just something else to put in my files, my payroll files all together. I've got everything all nice and neat, and I know I've done what I've needed to do. And I don't have to go out to any other websites to do it. It's all in QuickBooks, nice and neat and orderly. And it also, I mean, it's good for, I mean, one, if you don't have your payroll taxes and all set up to calculate, and some people don't, they should be set up to calculate. Something else to mention on this too, usually right at the end of the year, you are getting notifications that either your eTides, depending on if your payroll's changed, that your eTides payment frequency has changed, EFTPS payment frequency has changed. Down here is where you want to do that to manage your payment methods. You click on this. Wait a second. Has to load the setup, but this is where you're going to go in and make those changes to the frequency. You can go into schedule payments, and if I click on them and edit, it'll allow me to change how often I have to file. So make sure you do that. Make it easy on yourself. The other thing, if you don't have your benefits like health insurance or things like that set up that are paid directly out of QuickBooks, I mean, paid as part of payroll, you can set up things like rich 401k withholding to get those reminders if you don't have those set up. You can set up, what else do we got? Child support withholding. So those types of payments, things that are withheld, make sure that you get those set up and schedule those payments. It gives you that reminder, and it just makes it easier for you. Okay.
So when you go back to the payroll module, there on the left-hand side, it says subscription status. That's how you can tell what subscription you have.
What are you talking about?
Right, you just went over it. Subscription status in the next box up.
Oh,
That'll tell you what payroll subscription you have.
oh, it'll be in there.
Sample account. Okay, good. Thank you. Is that why you had that grin on your face there?
Nope, my dog was visiting me.
The advantages to remote work environments, I tell you. Okay, let's see. Until he starts barking and, you know what, in the middle of a webinar.
I mean, his tail was in the screen a little bit, but.
Okay, so we talked about setting up tax payments. Let's talk about memorized transactions. I know we're all out there trying to make our job a little bit easier, and anything we can do to help that along is a good thing. The easier we can make our job. And there are so many things that are automatically processed now, either auto draft out of our accounts, whether it be loans. I'm seeing more and more that health insurance is automatically drafted from our accounts, you know, from the employer's accounts. just to make that easy. Those are the two that I think of right off the top of my head. Life insurance or anything like that. So you can make those processes a little bit easier by setting up memorized transactions. If you go down under memorized transaction list, there are a few set up here. And the nice thing about this, you can memorize invoices. So if you do a monthly billing to the same people every month, let's say as an example, rent, you have rent that you don't necessarily send an invoice for, but you want to come up. Or you have a monthly fee of some sort that you are billing customers for. You can set them up. You can go in, create an invoice. Okay, and we are going to set this up, not the best example, but we'll give you an idea. So let's say someone else joining us. Okay, so we click the customer and then let's select something here off the wall. Okay, we can come up here. Once you have the invoice set up exactly how you want it, you can come up here and memorize it. Now, what I've done in the past, I can set up a group. You notice it'll say, it has here, add to group. So if I have something that I'm doing on a monthly basis, like I'm invoicing 30 customers for X dollars each month, I can put them all under one group. And you can do that by going to the memorized transaction list. If we come to the bottom, and we can set up new group. And we can put this under, and this is just more to give you all ideas and get your mind working on different things that you can do. Monthly billings, quarterly billings, however you want to put it. And you can automate the transaction entry. You can tell it how often, the date, the next date, and do they change every year? You might just want them to post for 12 months or 5 years, whatever. And then you've got that group set up. Now I can go back to my invoice, memorize. I can now add it to a group because I set a group up, monthly billing, hit OK. Now that little sound is it taking a picture if you heard it. And now a couple things to remember. If I was to hit save and close here, it's going to record this invoice. Okay. Now this was a hard lesson to learn for me. When I first started doing this, and this is terrible, I kept trying to memorize an invoice and I couldn't get it memorized for some reason. I don't think, this was a long time ago, by the way, so I don't think I knew 100% of what I was doing. So I thought, okay, I'll figure it out as I go. So I was save and close. Nope, it did not memorize it. Save and close again. By the time I got done, I had recorded the invoice like 10 times and still hadn't gotten the stupid thing memorized. So if you're just trying to memorize the invoice, click memorize up here, but then just X out. Okay. No, I don't want to record it. I already memorized it. But if I was to hit save and close, it records it. It still memorized it, but it records the invoice too. Now, when I go up here to monthly billings, please enter the date for the transaction in the monthly billing group. And I can tell it when I want to post. I click OK, and then everything under that group is going to post at that time. Now, if I was to go back into this particular invoice, change something because the amount changed, I have to update it. You want to click memorize again and tell it to replace it. Do not hit save and close because it is again going to record the invoice. You just have to update your Memrise and it'll ask you, do you want to replace it? So just an FYI, don't take the hard lesson that I did because I had to go back and delete all those extra invoices.
I mean, it gives us good talking points whenever you're doing these.
Absolutely. Learn from my mistakes, I say. Could not figure out what that thing was doing. And that's funny that a hard lesson like that, it just really sticks in your mind. So anywho, all right. So we've talked about memorizing an invoice. You can, you can also memorize journal entries. So if your accountant gives you depreciation or something that needs to be recorded on a monthly basis, then you can memorize a journal entry. Do you do the same thing? You go into company, make general journal entries. You set up the journal entry just as it's to be done each month. Click the memorize button up here. A bill. If you have a monthly rent bill, rather than entering it each month, you can set it up as a bill to automatically enter for you, that it'll automatically go over in the pay bill screen, wait for you to pay it. So it reduces the amount of time. I got a question here. Yes.
Yeah, so if you memorize a journal entry, I do the same journal entries every month. I just change the amounts. Does it transfer over? Does it act as an actual, when you memorize it, does it act as an actual journal entry already entered, or does it just sit there for you to edit it?
No, and actually, when you go in and go down to the journal entry, if I double click on this, it's going to open it up. That's the original entry. You can edit the amounts in this. You've already got that set up, so you don't have to click on each one of these fields and populate the entire journal entry. You can either save and close and record it the way you have it, or you can adjust this, change these amounts to what they need to be from month to month, and save and close. And now you've got an updated entry recorded. Did that answer your question?
So if I can I zero out all the amounts and then enter them little by little as I go, because I have to go back and forth on to my P&Ls to figure out what I'm entering, or would it give me an error message?
I don't think it lets you record a zero entry. I'll try it real quick, but I don't think it'll let you. I think what I typically do is put like penny in this column and a penny in this column. We can try it. Would you like to replace it? Yes. Oh,
Does allow it.
so let's see. Yep, it comes up with zeros. You used to have to put an amount in, and that's why I always use a penny in each column. But no, it'll let you do that.
Okay.
That's a pretty cool feature now. That must be something that's not that old in here, but that's nice. So hopefully that'll be helpful to you.
Yes, it will. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Same thing with checks. You can go into banking and write checks. You can enter a check, let's say your health insurance. You can do ACH up here, the health insurance company. And again, you've got that memorize button up here. You can memorize it and put it in that memorized transaction list. These are great tools, great tools to reduce the amount of time we spend doing things each month, depending on what your processes are. Okay. So one of the other things I wanted to talk about, and when Mandy and I was going over this list yesterday, she was like, you gotta show me how to do that. So speaking of memorized, so the report center, and we can get really consumed in reports, but let's go over to these memorized reports. And this is nice. You have defaults in your QuickBooks file. I can tell you that. I think it automatically comes with accountant reports. It comes with bank reports. But what you can do in this memorized report list, one, you can always memorize a report as well. Pull something up. Let's say you go to the balance sheet and you've made changes. You have to provide reports to board members or council or something like that each month, the owner each month. And he wants it to be specific. He only wants to see certain information. You can change this report to whatever you want. Let's say we're going to make a cash basis. Here's one. This says this fiscal year to date, but if let's do the profit and loss. That's a better one. So this has changed this month to date, but I want to see last month. So at the beginning of every month, he wants to see the profit and loss for last month. We're going to do cash basis. So it's always going to point to last month, no matter what the date is. I can change any number of things in here. One thing that I like to fix is I want it to display non-zero rows. So anything that has a 0 in it, it'll take those out. So anything without data in. Then we can go over here and we can filter things down however you'd like. You can change your header and footer. Change your header and footer. You can take out all this other stuff over here. You can put an extra footer line in. Hit OK. You notice it changed the name. I can memorize this. And I want to make it a new one, prior month P&L, and hit OK. So it just took that picture. Here it is down here at the bottom. I did not put it in with a group. So I messed that up. So let's come down here. We're going to click on it. I'm going to slide it up under this report, under this group. It didn't do it. Can I bring it up? No. So if I edit the report, now I can save it in the accountant group. Now it's in where I wanted it to be. So the balance sheet. Let's say I have this balance sheet up and this is something I provide, but I need to make some notes on this and I'm going to email these out. How am I going to do that? I can come up and comment on this report. And when I click that, see all these little green things over here? That's where I can put my comments. So let's say on the savings account, I want to make a note in here so that whoever I'm emailing them to can see it, that the current interest rate is nothing, which is nothing right now. Actually, that's bad. I'm going to do current interest rate is 0.5%. Okay. So we're going to put that in there and click save. It comes up highlighted up here. Okay. And now I'm going to close my report. Now it says, if you leave now, you lose your changes you made. Do you want to save your commented report first? Yes. We're going to name it so I know what it is. Hit OK. OK. Now, when I come back out of this, I can go up to reports. Now, I'm still in the memorized report list, but you notice if I come back up to reports, see this commented reports? And it should be up under there. There it is. I did one earlier too as a test. So now if I double click on this, now my comments come right back up.
Bonnie, is there a question?
Is there?
Mhm.
Is that Missy?
Yes.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just have to hop off in a few minutes. But for the memorized transaction list, we have 3 accounts in our QuickBooks. And I acquired this information from our bookkeeper that we no longer have. And so she had it already set up. Now, how do I change the account that the memorized list would come out of? Or do I have to redo a whole new list? Like we have a regular
Can't you just edit them?
I think you
So,
can.
but we have a regular operating banking account, and then we have our payroll account, and then we have like the PPP loan account, 3 bank accounts. And for the payroll, it's all coming out. If I enter the transaction list, it comes out of the payroll, but I don't want it coming from there. I want it to come out of the PPP loan right now till probably September, I believe.
So she has the payroll set up as a memorized transaction?
Yes.
Oh,
Oh,
Wait, payroll transfer or payroll?
It's just a payroll bank account, balances and stuff. We don't use payroll like ledger or anything with QuickBooks.
so do you, is it an actual, so what type of transaction is it? Is it a journal entry or is it a?
Right. Just a journal entry.
You should be able to update the journal entry.
Yeah, you should be able to go to the journal entry, change what account. So I could change the bank account that it's coming out of and just hit memorized and it'll update it. You want to replace it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense with that. I wasn't sure if you can change that, what bank account it would deduct from.
Oh yeah, if you can change any account in here and tell it which one. So you've probably got multiple transactions and then a line crediting the one checking account.
Right.
So on that line, just change what account it's coming from.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll check that out then.
All right. If you have any more questions on that, let me know. I know you have to hop off.
All right. Thank you.
Uh-huh. All right. So let's get back over here to reports. So now we've got comments on reports and you notice up here, you can email these. Now it takes a little bit of setup and it'll email it as a PDF, send as a PDF. Once I click OK here, it's going to says you have to create a profile first to use Outlook to send an email. So you've got a little setup behind the scenes to do on this, but then you can send these reports right out of QuickBooks. You can print it. You can do whatever you need to here. So I wanted to show you the commented reports, but the other thing I wanted to show you is to get back over to this memorized report list. And one of the things that's really nice is, let's say I need to send reports to the accountant. It's the end of the year. They always bug me for this stuff, and I need to send this out to them. So if I go down here, if I click on the group and I hit display, I get this screen that comes up and I can pick and choose what I want to send. Okay, so I don't need the prior month P&L, but I do need all of these other reports. I can tell it what date range I want. I can change it at any point in time. And then I believe I can also select commented reports on here. Go back over. Nope, it's only going to let me do the one. And then if I hit email, or I can print them all at once, so you don't even have to email. You can print all these reports at one time instead of going down your report list, click, print. Okay, go ahead and print it, then coming back, go into reports, go into the list. So you can have these all set up to print. I use this for payroll reports at some of my clients, and I really like this feature because I have certain lists, certain reports that I have to print to get approval for payroll, and I can just go in and print them all at one time rather than having to go back to reports 5 or 6 different times. And when I click email, because I don't have QuickBooks email set up, okay, I can't do it, but I can email these directly out. So if you're one of those people right now that are running reports for the boss or a board, whatever the case may be, and having to save them as PDF and then going out and sending them from your email, if you get them set up, then you should be able to send them right out of QuickBooks and have everything you need. Let me see. So does that help? Mandy, you got any questions on that?
I don't know, but I'm gonna try it.
Pretty cool. When I found this was cool. I was like, okay, I like that. It's just the little things that make our life so much easier.
Yeah.
The memorized reports, it's a great feature. Use that when you get a chance. One of the other things I wanted to talk about, a lot of times, okay, did somebody step out or did somebody have a question? Okay. One of the other things I want to talk about is at the end of the year, we typically have to send a copy of the QuickBooks file to the client. I mean, to the, let me flip that on the other side. As the client, you have to send your QuickBooks file to your accountant. You have the option to do, and I wanted to explain what an accountant's copy is. That is a copy of your QuickBooks file that has a cutoff date. So you have a couple different ways you can send them just a backup of your file, which is fine. But an accountant's copy, you can send to your accountant. They can see exactly what you have from the cutoff date that you set. It allows them to get in, do the work, but it also allows you to continue to work. And then you can get journal entry sent directly out of your file to you. And you can do that journal entries without the accountant's copy, right, Mandy?
You can, yes. You don't need the accountant's copy to import journal entries.
But
The other thing that the accountant's copy will do, when you create that cutoff date, you can't make changes to prior to that cutoff date.
and that's probably the best feature of this, because once you send the file to your accountant, you don't want to make changes to the data that they're looking at. So they can't record, I don't think we can record transactions forward of the cutoff date, and
No, I think we can.
we can,
There are limitations in what we can and can't do.
right?
But I think we can record future transactions.
Okay,
I know you can because I've done reversing transactions
okay,
previously after the cutoff date.
all right. So the accountant's copy means that you won't be able to go back and change data that, as the accountant, they're going to be looking at, whether it's for the tax return, which is normally what the case is, or if they're doing financial reports. You don't want to change that data once the file is sent. So the accountant's copy, and it's in the same place. If you go to file, backup company, oh, wait a minute. Or is it create copy?
Mhm.
I think it's create copy. Yes, an accountant's copy. If your file is really big, you can create a portable company file, and it makes it easier to send. It won't take as long to send it, however it's being sent, or to copy it over. It kind of compresses the data. But accountant's copy, once you click that and you hit next, it won't let me use this, but you have to set the dividing date. It won't let me do it because I'm in a sample file, but that's a way to send your accountant a copy. Now, once we get done with our year-end work, what we like to do is send you journal entries so that one, we can send them to you via email, so you don't have to enter each individual journal entry. Now, there are some limitations there. If we're doing an audit, we can't send you, I don't think we can send entries for you to upload into your system. But
There's a workaround.
there is,
Yeah,
so,
the financial statements.
yeah, so,
You sign off and then send the file, but yeah.
okay. So we can send you journal entries. So depending on how many you have at the end of the year, that's going to be a big time saver for you because you're not having to sit there and enter each one through the journal entry screen. So if you get journal entries, ask if we can send them to you out of QuickBooks so you can import them. And it is super easy. So where you would normally spend 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever it is, entering journal entries that we would send, you can simply go to File, down to Utilities, Import, General Journal Entries, and you'll tell it where the file is, and bam, it uploads. You even have an opportunity to look at them and approve them before you enter them. So you click on the ones, you can look at them, approve them, and then import them into your file. So big time saver at the end of the year, depending on the number of journal entries.
And I will say that whether we import journal entries or whether we do the accountant's copy, if we add an account, change an account type, whatever, like your file will be updated in that import.
Okay, good. Thank you for adding that. Okay. So that's as much as I had on our agenda to cover. But what I wanted to do is ask if there's any other questions. Do you guys have anything that we didn't talk about? The floor is yours. If you have something, a question you want to ask that we need to work through, is there something we didn't cover you want to talk about? Now's your opportunity.
Bonnie, I have a question.
Okay.
When you're doing memorized transactions, and I have a few for paying bills at the beginning of the month,
Mhm.
but say it was the health insurance bill and that changes once in a while, is there a way for it to pop up a reminder and tell me that, you know, maybe I need to look at the amount and double check and make sure it's correct?
Well, first, with any memorized transaction, you can always edit it. Okay. So even after it posts in QuickBooks, so let's say you accepted the transaction and it posted in your books, you can always go back and edit it. Okay. And that's probably one of the best perks about QuickBooks is that, you know, you can change things. It's not in stone. But in your memorized transaction list, what you can do, if I click up here and hit edit memorized transaction, if you notice here, it says you can add it to your reminders list. You don't want it to remind you. It just sits there until you tell it to post, or you can automate the transaction entry. So if you automate it, regardless, it's going to come up and tell you you've got memorized transactions that need to be posted. Do you want to post them now? So every time you open up QuickBooks, if you've got a memorized transaction that's scheduled to post, it's going to say you've got transactions to post. Do you want to post them now? So it's going to ask you. So that gives you the opportunity, or is a reminder, to go in and say, okay, yep, go ahead and post it, but let me go back in here and change it. You can also just simply add something to your reminders list. Don't forget to update health insurance. And I believe, no, the reminders are over here.
I was going to say, does that pop up just like the beginning of the month entries, the memorized?
What, the reminders list?
Yes.
No, you can always go over here and click it to come in here and check it. And I think, well, it'll tell you have forms to send. Let's look at the preferences on that. Reminders. Show reminders list when opening a company file. So if we were to click that on, And that's a my preference. So if you have other people that are logging into the QuickBooks file, it'll only show up for you. So yeah, you can tell it to come up and remind and show you the reminders list when every time you open up the file. Does that help?
Very much. Thank you.
Sure. That reminders list too is something I don't ever use. But you can, if you click on the company preferences, and I'm glad you brought this up, you've got different things that it can remind you to do, whether it is, you've got to-do notes, memorized transactions, bills to pay, and you can set those thresholds of how often you want to see it. Checks to print, it'll tell you. Paychecks to print. Let me see, almost due invoices. To-do notes, memorized transactions due 5 days before the due date. So yeah, it'll definitely remind you. So just remember that you've got those in there. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, when you do come on the home page, don't they come up at the bottom too, Mandy? No, maybe they don't.
I think they're just at that flag.
I know, yeah, I know like the record deposits, it'll tell you now if you have deposits there to be deposited. And you might have print checks, it might come up that there's checks to print too. But, okay, any other questions? Quiet group today.
I have another question, but I'm going to let everybody else ask theirs first.
Well, I think you're about the only one right now. So
I have lots of questions.
okay.
This isn't so much a question as an oops. So my friend forgot to change the UC tax rate at the beginning of the year.
Mhm.
And now my friend has to deal with that. Do you have any tricks that I can help my friend with?
So they didn't change the UC rate. So what she actually had to pay was either more or less than the payment amount sitting in her pay payroll liability screen.
It was actually more had to be paid
Okay,
than what was showing up in QuickBooks. Yes.
I can show you how to do this. So if you go to employees and pay scheduled liabilities, my brain froze there for a minute. So if we go into the screen and let's say we're going to click this, let's pretend this is PA Unemployment and we click view and pay. Okay. And let's say the amount that we needed to pay was actually 150. So you're going to change it up here. And this is a way to kind of outsmart the system, I guess is what you're going to call it. So it's $150 instead of 110. Now, all you're going to have in here is 110. And this, what's in here down here has to match what's up here. So what you do is you click on the expense tab. And then you would select your payroll expenses, like not everybody does, but some people may have just payroll tax expense because this is obviously going to be employer tax, not employee withheld. So you've got payroll tax expense, or you've got UC tax, employer UC tax on your P&L. So it's going to be an expense account. And we're going to click payroll expenses, and then you're going to type the difference in here. Okay. So this would record the additional expense. Now the total on these two tabs equals the total up here. And your check is for the right amount. And now you can either print the check, save and close and go out and print it, whatever you need to do. That makes sense?
That does. Thank you. But now there has been a payroll happen in the second quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And QuickBooks is telling me it's going to go in and I guess the word is take more out of the next payroll. Is
She
that,
needs to update the payroll item list. That you see withholding in the payroll item list.
Yeah, did she update
Yeah.
the rate?
well, it's me. Come on, I'm not lying.
Oh my gosh.
You didn't get that?
For that, okay?
So I did go ahead and I changed it for the second, third, and fourth quarter, and that's when it told me that since we've already had a payroll happen, it's going to, I think, take out a little bit more the next time we run a payroll. Is that right?
It won't take out any, it might record some additional liability because
Okay.
you see rate.
Yeah, I used the word take out too soon. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Because, yeah, because the amount that they're calculating is purely the employer expense.
Right.
So you may have more, and I'll be completely honest, and I'm not sure what you were saying, Sharon, but I've never seen it catch up before. Have you?
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on what tax it is. So if it says it's gonna do that, I would just let it go. I mean,
Okay.
you know, and see if it's gonna really catch itself up for the quarter. Cause then you won't have that difference
Right.
of your quarter when you go to do your, you know.
Okay. So it may
Right.
happen again next quarter, and I would just have to do this entry one more time.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
I have even seen where, and this used to be a call that we got all the time, or at least when I first started with the firm, is, you know, I've got a couple pennies difference on my payroll tax payment and it's not
Mm.
matching what's in QuickBooks. So this is a way that we would go in and fix it, is just go over here. Let's say it was $100 and you could go in and change it. You would just do a -10 here. As long as these two tabs are right and you're posting it to payroll tax expenses, whatever, some people have more detail other than just payroll tax expense. And you adjust it to make sure that these two, so this can be a negative. But you cannot change, and this is important, you cannot change it here under the payroll liability tab, because if you do, it's going to stick it back up here in your liabilities to be paid. So you can't pay less and adjust it here because QuickBooks is smarter than that. And it's going to stick it right back up there and show that you still owe money. But it's a great way to adjust anything you have sitting out there. Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, I guess that's it. I want to thank everyone for showing up. Hopefully you guys are leaving with some good information. You can always reach out to Mandy, Sharon, or myself. One of us is always available. They know how to get us in the office if we're not in the office. So thank you very much. You guys have a good day. Enjoy the beautiful weather, because I understand it's going to be really, really pretty all day today. So, all right. Thank you, everyone.